Hello all, Old Geek here, and I'm back from my little week off down in the south of England, and we're going to have a look today at White Dwarf magazine, issue number 6. Now this is from April-May 1976, still costing just 50 of your finest English pence, $1.50 in the currency across the water. White Dwarf still going with monochromatic covers, and still going with, I think, more interesting artwork than Dragon. This is... it's great. I haven't got a clue what these beasts are meant to be, but I think he looks particularly fearsome. But that's what monsters are supposed to be like. Fearsome. Like it a lot. Like it a lot. So in this issue we have the Fiend Factory, new monsters, which we saw appear for the first time last issue. Some Traveller stuff, which I'll probably skip past. And figures reviews. Okay. We're still on 24 pages as well. And as we know, Dragon has just grown a little bit. So White Dwarf is slightly behind at the moment. But do we have quality over quantity? Shall we see? Dragon has been getting better. Last few issues have been pretty good. And I think while White Dwarf has been decent, I don't think it's lived up to that first issue, which was so much better than Dragon was at that point. I think Dragon's doing that. White Dwarf has done that, dipped, and it's held firm. So let's have a little look. Dungeons and Starships. I mentioned that last time. One of my channel regulars remembers that shop. Low cost mail order specialist. SD and VM Steel, Morley Road, Surrey. That's down south as well. Lots. But it's a British magazine, so we're going to get British adverts, which is fine. Greenwood and Ball, Teesside, Cliff Sanderson. What's this? SSK, Handmaiden with Feather Fan. A buxom lady busily keeping someone cool. Will fit in with the Throne diorama released last month. I didn't see a Throne, don't remember it. It's 54mm miniature. Okay. Cliff Sanderson seems to like doing ladies. Yes. Let's keep going. Combat and Armour Class. A realistic approach to Armour Class. Okay. Fiend Factory. Assortment of new monsters, edited by Don Turnbull. I wonder if he's put monster marks in for them. Figures, reviews, news. Place in the Wilderness. Oh, a wilderness scenario for D&D by Lewis Pulsifer. Okay, we can have a look, because part of the point of the magazines for me is scenarios, ideas for scenarios. Yes, I like to do my own stuff, but I like to lift bits and bobs and use bits and bobs from other adventures and drop them in and mash things together and just try and come up with something that works. And help is always good. Let's see what Sir Ian Livingston... He is now Sir Ian Livingston. He wasn't at this point. This is the 6th issue of White Dwarf. That means effectively a year of publication, and many more to come, we hope. Yes. And you were good for about another 10 years or so, and then you went all Warhammer. Time usually brings change, and White Dwarf is no exception. Move to a new office. Okay, going up in the world. Issue 7, prices increasing to 60p per issue. An annual subscription, £4. Wouldn't that be wonderful? That means 6 issues at 60 pence each, and you're paying 40 pence for a year's postage. 40 pence for a whole year of postage. Right, shall we? Oh, they're bringing in John Blanche for some of his art as well. Next issue, issue 7. Right, okay. I like these issues they got at these covers they've got at the moment. But John Blanche is known for his quite bonkers art. So let's see what he comes up with. Right, let's have a little look what we got further down. Combat at Arm Class by Roger Musson. It would make an interesting survey to solicit contributions up and down the country from DMs and players on the subject, the one thing I dislike most about D&D. If we're talking old, as in OD&D, BX, AD&D, I don't have enough experience of OD&D. I've never played Holmes, but I've played BX, I've played Beckme, and I've played AD&D. What do I dislike most about them? Might have to come back to that. I do think basic D&D would have benefited from more ways for characters to spend the loot at lower levels. Really get them to spend the loot, you've got to push sort of carousing expenses and make sure all inns are always paid for and that sort of thing. Otherwise cash does build up. In basic D&D, AD&D got around that with training. I know some people didn't like that, but I did. It kept characters poor till around level 6, which works for me. It's a little... You've really got to think of ways to keep characters poor in basic D&D. It can be done. But you've got to really push at it. I think that's the one thing about early D&D that gets me. How they can start with no money and within a couple of levels there's somebody rolling in it in basic. Combat system has so many faults with regards to realism. Depends whether you want realism. I don't think you play D&D for realism. There's the thorny problem of critical hits, for example. Look. Again, do you need realism? You can automatically kill a sleeping or incapacitated opponent in early D&D. I'm not sure whether you could in OD&D or where exactly it came in, but I remember it could be done in the D&D versions I played, whereby if you put some orcs to sleep, you could just cut their throats and they are dead. There's no need to roll. So it's not a problem unless that problem was ironed out sort of between this period of this being produced in 78, which would have been around the time they were making the AD&D rules, though they weren't produced yet. BX, okay, yeah. The rules were a work in progress, so I'm no expert on exactly when rules first appeared in these early editions. So, okay. Talking about issues of hit location, characters seem to receive wounds in the abstract. Again, you don't play D&D for realistic combat. There are others. There won't have been at the time when this was written, but nowadays there are. I mean, by the early 80s, there already were systems in place which had got hit locations. Look at, for example, Chaosium's system. You've got hit locations in that. I know GURPS. I'm sure GURPS had hit locations. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know they came out a little bit later. But to me, D&D's lack of hit locations and lack of realism in combat is not. It's not a problem. It's about speed of combat, speed of resolution, and narration of what you're doing. If you want to save, you've stabbed an orc in the stomach or whatever, you don't need dice to tell you that you can do that. You might need dice if you want to decapitate one, but that's very different. But then there are rules that came in with like a -4 to hit, aiming for the head, or something like that. I don't know, there were helmet rules in AD&D. Not that I ever used them. Wanted to, never did. Anyway, let's move on. So, adjusting armor class systems. I mean, yes, magazines are the place to thrash this sort of thing out, to discuss this sort of thing, and to give options for DMs that want them. And when I was younger, I may well have tried to bring in these sort of rules, and then probably jettisoned them after a while. When you're inexperienced with a game, you don't always know what impact rules are going to have. If I cast my mind nowadays over a more mechanical approach, because I've got a lot more years of experience under my belt, I've got an idea of what impact this is going to have on the game before I even try it. When I was younger, I wouldn't have had that. I might have just thought, oh, it's in print, I've got to try it, I've got to play it, and then got frustrated. But then still thought, well, I've got to use it though, but you haven't got to. That's one thing that liberates you in terms of playing RPGs, is you do not have to use everything that is written in the book. Use the core rules as a framework, use the bits and pieces you like, and jettison the bits you don't. But it is key that you've got the experience and the understanding behind you before you make those decisions. Anyway, I'll move on before I annoy anybody. The Fiend Factory. I'm just scanning to see if he's still mentioning Monster Mark, or whether he's really decided now that it's... Oh, God! Oh, it's there. It's there. Look. Oh, Doug, it's crap. Get rid of it. Right. The Needleman by Trevor Graver. Well done, Trevor Graver. This appeared in the Fiend Folio. I'm going to say now, the Needlemen are one of my favourite low-level monsters. I think they are fantastic. They are quite dangerous. They're not particularly strong, but they have the capability to do a fair bit of damage. But they are wonderfully horrific in the way they're depicted, I think. Yeah, I like them. I like them a lot, Needlemen. So well done, Trevor Graver. Oh, the Throat Leech, yes. Hang on. Throat Leech, Bone Snapper. They made it into the Fiend Folio as well, both by Ian Livingston. The Fiend. Now, this piece of artwork for the Fiend, recognise that signature, Hunter, isn't it? I think I read was. No, I mean, looking at it, that piece of artwork, I'm sure that something very similar to that made its way into the Fiend Folio. But there was no Fiend creature in the Fiend Folio, unless it was renamed. But I don't recognise any creature attacking with 2 fists plus heat metal. What did the Lava Children do? I can't remember. The Mite, yes. Mite made it into the Fiend Folio. The artwork for these other ones, the Throat Leech, Bone Snapper, the Mite's not very good. That's better. Needleman's better. Disenchanter, that made it to the Fiend Folio. Yeah. Dodgy artwork. Oh dear. It's not great. I don't think that artwork's great. I think they looked a bit odd in the folio anyway, but then, here we go. Here we go. The Nilbog. Oh, look. No monster mark. Good. Now, let it stay that way. The Nilbog. Such a twisted creature. So glorious. Excellent. Excellent. Archive Miniatures, reviewed by John Norris. I don't remember Archive Miniatures. The Cimmerian. Conan. Okay. Pumpkin-headed man. Mule. Beholder. Umber Hulk. Yeah. Look at that Umber Hulk. That doesn't look very sharp, does it? I mean, does anyone remember this particular company of miniatures? Because that mage looks quite good. It looks like a ghosty thing. That looks quite good. I didn't think that Umber Hulk looked particularly great. Conclusion. Let's read the conclusion. A brief review like this can only scratch the surface. Omitted in their entirety are such delights as the barbarian ducks, a series of medieval versions of the famous Howard, and numerous Amazons, the Dragon Pass figures for the world of Bear and the Red Moon, and the more recent Star Rovers. Okay. The Hobbits and the Dwarf will fit in fairly well. And I recommend. It recommends them. So, again, I might be unfairly judging what I see based on the standards of what I remember. And by the time I was even thinking of getting any miniatures, then it was Citadel and Ralpartha. And it was in our local Games Workshop. There'd be banks of D&D stuff, and then there'd be banks of miniatures. Loads to pick from. Could never afford to buy whatever I wanted. They'd have loads of MERP stuff in there as well, which was great. And this is before Warhammer took over. Warhammer was at one end of the shop, but it was only about a third of the shop. The other 2/3 was RPG and miniatures, and there were miniatures that were designed for RPGs. They weren't Warhammer armies. These were the sort of miniatures you'd use in playing D&D. So it was a great shop back then. Great shop. Let's have a little look. News. The second release of TSR's revised D&D system is now available in the USA. It's soon to be seen in the UK shops. It is the Monster Manual, written by Gary Gygax. Hardbound, contains 350 monsters, of which 200 are illustrated, and costs $9.95. And what is it in pounds? Games Workshop will be publishing this volume under license with a soft cover. Do you remember that? I've seen one. Thought about picking up one from eBay as well. Of course, they weren't quite as robust as the hardcover ones. I've still got my original hardcover one from back then. But it might be nice to have a copy of the soft cover one. But to keep the price down. Okay, that's fine. It is expected that the Advanced D&D Player's Handbook and Referee's Guide will be released in the USA around July and August. Well, 1978 saw the Player's Handbook. We had to wait until 1979 for the Dungeon Master's Guide. So, obviously, that slipped. Numerous changes and amendments, including a revised magic system with new spells, changes to characters' hit dice, e.g. fighters will now use D10 instead of D8. Oh, the shock. Oh, the horror. Right. Purple Worm. Marvellous. I'm assuming it's Purple Worm. It's actually a grey, black and white shaded worm, but it looks like a purple worm. Place in the Wilderness. This setup, which is based on Jack Vance's excellent Hugo-winning novel, The Dragon Masters, may be incorporated into your wilderness. It is not, obviously, a place to be encountered by low-level adventurers, but what level the party ought to be depends on how powerful magic is in your world. Why is that obvious? I mean, unless, well, obviously I've not read the Dragon Masters, so that might be why it's obvious. But without actually reading it already, unless it's got dragons. I mean, the Dragon Masters will probably have dragons in it, won't it? Look at these. Look at these things. Look at these monsters. The Termagant, Longhorned Murderer, and Jugger. I like his sword. I do like the way that sword's been depicted. Very, very bizarre. Look at these spikes jutting out of his chest. And I quite like those creatures. They look awesome. Good artwork as well. It's good artwork. Well, I don't know anything about that scenario. I was expecting something a bit more when I saw there was a scenario in the index at the start, but it could just be just testing the water with a few ideas. Obviously, I don't know Dragon Masters, so can't really give an opinion. Okay, so Open Box is where they do the reviews. Knights of the Round Table, a fantasy role-playing miniatures rulebook based on the Arthurian legend. Oh, dear darling Guinevere. Yes, Lancelot. Ha. When I was on holiday, we went to Tintagel, supposedly where King Arthur was conceived, where King Uther Pendragon got down to it with Arthur's mom, whose name slips. Was she ever named? I can't remember ever hearing Arthur's mom's name. That's legend anyway. It's legend anyway. We don't even know if King Arthur existed. Probably an amalgamation of a number of sort of kings around the 6th and 7th centuries. I mean, that's what I would assume. That's often how myths do tend to grow up. But certainly I saw the island where the original Tintagel castle stood. And it's been rebuilt over a number of years by various kings that we know existed and used for various purposes, but it's a very, very defensible spot. Very defensible. Always nice to see a bit of history. Explored a cave known as Merlin's Cave as well. Bit of bandwagon jumping and calling it Merlin's Cave, I guess, but that was fun. That was a lot of fun. Anyway, Elric by the Chaosium. Okay. A game based on Michael Moorcock's stuff. Looking for a rating for Knights of the Round Table before I move on. It doesn't appear to be giving one. Elric does get ratings. 7 out of 10. Good points, rules, presentation, artwork and combat. Bad points, look factor, expensive, large playing area and card cutting. Is card cutting a bad problem? Look factor, that's down to personal preference. Some people like games with lots of luck. Other people like games with no luck. It's your risk versus diplomacy. Diplomacy, no luck. Risk, if the dice hate you, you can be in trouble. Obviously price is, and playing area has always been an issue for me. I've never had a massive area on which to play, so that could be an issue. D&D Playing Aids Campaign Hexagon System, a booklet of blank campaign hex grids. Okay. Wilderlands of High Fantasy. Wilderlands. Wilderlands. It's wilderness. So it might be Wilderlands. Is that Judges Guild? Don't. Okay. City State, Tegel Manor. Okay. 2 sets of 5 maps each. I've never seen this Wilderlands of High Fantasy. I've read about it. I know it's thought of in quite high esteem. And Don Turnbull likes it. Let that not be a good reason for failing to buy the material, though. Go out and buy it. Spend your money. And put Monster Mark in it. Oh, no, no, no. Dungeon decor, endless dungeon. It's always nice to see when things are first appearing, even if it's not the sort of things I would use. Because these are kits, so you can build up 3D representations of dungeons. I would never ever use them, but it's nice to see when people started introducing them to put them onto the market to see. I wouldn't use it though. Wouldn't use it. Don Turnbull. On the whole, then, I think you can afford to give both packs a miss. Okay. All right, Don. Labyrinthine. To quote from the blurb, this game kit contains a geomorphic representation of an evil wizard stronghold. Okay. Yes, it is a game remarkably similar to Citadel, reviewed in White Dwarf 3. Presentation is inferior, the rules are less detailed and less well presented than those of Citadel. The game components are qualitatively inferior to those of Citadel. The game is less interesting to play than is Citadel. As if this wasn't enough, the game costs nearly £1. It's English slang. Nearly £1 more than Citadel. What do you conclude? Yes, so did I. Didn't like it. Didn't like it. Fair enough. Letters page. Dave Coleman from London. There was a commentator, David Coleman, one of the greatest commentators of all time. Won't be the same man. One thing I've noticed about these letters pages, though. Look, Roger Musson, Lewis Pulsifer. These letters are contributors in terms of monsters and articles. So I do wonder if they were getting many letters at this point, or whether it was just the same people trying to stir up a little bit of conversation to get the letters page going. Don't know. And some of these are bickering as well in reply to these objections in White Dwarf. La di da di da. Bicker. Nerdy. It's what we use Discord for nowadays. Arguing. Alright, Traveller. A review. Oh, is this when Traveller first came out, 1978? I don't know. I'm not a sci-fi fan. In fact, you're probably bored of me saying that. So, it's not my thing. I don't know much about it. But in the comments below, tell me, is this when Traveller first came out? So is this review sort of on time or whatever? I don't know. I remember seeing Traveller in Games Workshop. Calgar. It's a well-drawn comic strip. Sons of dogs, I'll kill you all. Looks very slick. I know I should go back and read them so I can talk about the storyline, but I've been on holiday. Treasure Chest, the Asprey System by Brian Asprey. So if I devised a treasure system, would I patent it as the Yog system? Yog. The Geek system. This is... Oh, it's a spell... Experience points awards for casting of spells. And then we saw this in 2nd edition D&D, AD&D. It became pretty much the standard way of giving out XP. You need to make other adjustments, though, because if you're going to give out XP for spellcasting, only spellcasters will get that XP. So what do you give warrior types, thief types, And do you still give out XP for gold? And what impact does that have on the way you play the game? Because when gold is the treasure of any sort, is the dominant source of experience points, player characters tend to be more careful. And as soon as you start giving them out XP out for the characters doing their jobs, then I think the game loses something. Well, certainly it moves away from that old school treasure hunting vibe towards a slightly more mechanical, must be superhero type vibe. That's my own experience of it. But still, we have some new magic items here: the Millennium Blade, the Crystal Fount, the Staff Demons. Hit location in melee. Okay. Oh, I've already talked about this earlier on with that earlier article about adjusting armor classes. I don't care for it. I don't care for it. Warning, when using this system, monsters of higher levels are much deadlier adversaries than usual. Yes. And of course, with any of these tweaks, if you give this option to the player characters, the monsters are going to get it as well. And 15 kobolds diving at a lone fighter, trying to stab him in the head and the neck. Yeah, they'll get a greatly reduced chance individually to hit. But if you start rolling for big masses of enemies, and there's going to be more enemies usually than player characters, then those enemies are going to be getting these little bonuses. These nasty bits of nasty sort of combat bonuses a bit more often. Just remember that, players. Keep it simple, stupid. That's what I prefer. More classified ads. Where gamers wanted. Is that a typo? Is that an intentional typo? Where gamers wanted. Yeah. Because it says it's a War Games group. War Games wanted. The Dragon, numbers 1, 2, and 3. And Dungeoneer, number 1. To buy or borrow. Okay. D&D in Swansea. Postal Opponents for D&D Kingmaker. Okay. Origin 78 Wargaming Convention. Okay, people are wanting copies of the magazine, so they're realizing that magazines are becoming highly collectible already. I know when I first read Marvel Comics, my first Marvel Comic series was Secret Wars, and I started collecting it from about issue 3. Never did get a copy of issue 1 or 2. My friend allowed me to read his, but I never managed to get a copy. Right. Again, more adverts, but all dotted around England. Most things like there's Glasgow, so we've got Scotland as well. Excellent. Can't see any Wales. Swansea. There we go. Swansea. That's Wales. Any Ireland? I don't see any Ireland. Oh, Hamilton. Okay. Well, that's a Scottish one, isn't it? St Austell, Cornwall. Haven't seen Ireland yet. Games Workshop advertisement and a nice piece of art. It's Alan Hunter, who would appear quite frequently in the Fiend Folio, and I think he was one of the weaker artists in the Fiend Folio. Russ Nicholson obviously dominated. Itchy head, but I quite like this bit of art here for the time. It is suitably spooky. Look at these. Yeah, I think this actually is better than most of his stuff in the Fiend Folio. Nice bit of back cover art. There we go. That was issue number 6 of White Dwarf. I think that was quite good. Yes, there are bits and pieces in there that I wouldn't end up using, but they put ideas out. And it's always nice to get those ideas, and it's nice to see a scenario, however brief and simple it is, but it's nice to see the appearance of scenarios. So yeah, I quite like that White Dwarf. I think that's a turn in the right direction. Some good bits and pieces in there. Thumbs up. Thumbs up, indeed. I've been the Old Geek. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you in the next one.